Hi, my name is Kimberly Lum, and in this video, I will be discussing the different elements featured in my infographic about Starbucks coffee. I will first discuss the visual potential of appearance. The visual potential of appearance refers to showing what something looks like and something that viewers can identify. For my infographic, I use several appearance displays. The first appearance display is made of the Starbucks brand logo and the 3 different changes made to it between 1987 through 2011. This display was important to include because the Starbucks logo is a well-known logo that most viewers already recognize and associate with the Starbucks brand from first glance. I also include coffee mugs, Frappuccino cups, and coffee to-go cups as appearance displays to show the viewer the different forms in which coffee can be served. In my coffee price comparison display, I include the logos of various coffee chain competitors to give the viewer an idea of what other coffee brands look like. The second form of visual potential I will be discussing is location. Location refers to the relative positioning of locations on a page. In my infographic, I used a map of the United States that highlights the top 10 states that contain the most Starbucks stores. The third form of visual potential is numbers. Numbers refers to showing the number or value of a certain attribute encoded by size, amount, and/or position. In my infographic, my main numbers display is a line chart depicting the number of Starbucks stores in the world between 1971 through 2015. I use distance from the x-axis to show the number of Starbucks stores existing at each year as indicated on the axis. I also indicated in gold the value of each node on the line, either next to the node or above the node. The primary purpose of this display is to show the increasing number of Starbucks stores over a period of time. My second numbers display shows the average number of Starbucks locations within a 1-mile radius in the United States. For this display, I used an isotype chart that depicts 3.6 Starbucks stores. While it does not compare the number of Starbucks locations to, for example, another coffee chain's number of locations, it is still a numbers display because the viewer is able to visually count the number of Starbucks stores in this section. The fourth form of visual potential is relationships. Relationships describe the links, steps, sources, and destinations, or similarities between elements or concepts. For my relationship display, I depicted the coffee production chain. I included arrows between icons to show the order in which the steps occur. The last form of visual potential is time. Time refers to using the relative positioning of elements on a page to show when specific events occurred. For my infographic, I made a timeline in the form of a vertical straw with icons representing events showing the first in Starbucks history. Icons toward the top of the straw indicate events that occurred further back in history, and icons toward the bottom of the straw indicate events that occurred more recently. The exact dates of these events are encoded in gold numbers. Encoding refers to using color, position, or size to indicate or highlight specific attributes of information. In my location display, I used both color and size to encode my map. I used blue to show the top 10 states with the most number of Starbucks stores. I adjusted the size of the circular icons and text to show which of the 10 highlighted states had the highest number of stores. States with less stores had smaller icons and text, whereas states with more stores had larger icons and text. This allows the viewer to compare the number of stores across states and also see which of the top 10 states had the most and least number of stores overall. Alternatively, I could have used a choropleth map, using different gradations of the color blue to indicate the number of stores in each state. However, the original model did not include any other shades or gradients of blue in their displays, and so I opted to use this encoding method instead. In my relationship display, you can also see the encoding, which uses arrows to connect the icons to each other and shows the direction of the coffee production process. The arrows and spacing between each icon are uniform, showing that there is no hierarchy of steps and that each step is equally important in the production process. As far as color, although various gradients of black and gray are used, the primary colors used in the original infographic are black, blue, gold, and gray. The black, blue, and gold offer a high contrast to the white background, making certain elements stand out more than others. The tone created in my model is happy, bright, and energetic. In the original model, there is no direct encoding pattern, but the blue shows air movement, the black tends to signify metal, and the gold tends to signify important numbers and labels. The gold is complementary to the navy-ish black and blue colors. Originally, I wanted a color model that has shades of green, as used in the traditional Starbucks branding, but I decided to experiment with colors not commonly associated with Starbucks to add interest to my graphic. Black and gold colors emphasize the sophisticated side of Starbucks, while the blue shows the more playful and casual vibes of Starbucks. The original model used black as the largest highlighting element in the infographic, as shown by the prominent bike frame and multiple black silhouette figures. Black is also used to outline the partial circle icons, the bike tires, and the illustrations within each icon. Like the original model, my model uses black in many of my displays. Similar to the bike frame in the original model, the black straw in my model is the most centered and most prominent element in my time display. I also use black silhouettes in my location display, as depicted in the original model. I use black as a contrasting color in the majority of my other displays and for all of the circle or partial circle outlines. I also use black to outline elements and as a fill color for my logo display. In the original model, gold indicates important numbers and words and is additionally used as a highlighting color in many of the icon displays. Gold has multiple uses in my displays. Like the original model, gold is used for important numbers and words, and as a highlighting color. Moreover, gold is used to indicate the subheaders that define my sections in my model. In the original model, blue is used to make the title stand out from the white background. It is used in many of the icons and is often used to show air or wind movement as well. Blue is also seen throughout my displays. Like the original model, I use blue for the main title and to highlight key elements in my displays, such as the states in my location model. The original model uses gray for shading in the bike tires and gray for the map of France. It is also seen in a few of the smaller icon illustrations, such as the shadows and the aerofoil tubes. In my model, gray is used primarily for the US space map of my location display. It is also used as a minor color element in my relationship and time displays, as shown in the icon illustrations and the clear coffee cup. The clock in my Coffee for Thought display is meant to emulate the bike wheels of the original model. Like the original model, my model uses color to encode textual elements. In both models, the title is the only text that uses blue. This is to make sure that the title stands out from the rest of the infographic and to indicate to the reader where they should begin reading. Black text is used to indicate the header, subtitles, and annotations. Gold text is used to indicate subheaders and important numbers and phrases. It can be seen in the precision labels in my numbers display. I do not use any identity labels in my numbers display as I am not comparing line graphs. All text is written on top of a white background. My original model used 3 fonts: Perpetua, which is traditionally used as a carving font, Callisto MT, which is a Roman serif font, and a Body MT, condensed extra bold and MT light, a sans serif humanist font. The Perpetua font is only used for the header and the title. The Callisto MT font is used to indicate important numbers. A Body MT condensed extra bold is used for subheaders, and a Body MT condensed light is used for annotations and the subtitle. It's important to note that all text in the infographic is written in uppercase lettering. The title, numbers, header, and subheaders are all bolded as shown in both models. I also use thin and angled leader lines in my time display that emulate the labels on the bike in the original model. Furthermore, the subheaders throughout the original model are located above, below, or next to the illustrations. Additionally, some text is written inside the icon bubbles, whereas some of the text is written outside instead. There is no direct pattern associated with this choice. I emulated the sporadic choice of text location in my time model as well. Referring to the original model as a whole, in most cases, the text is center justified, excluding the header, title, subtitle, and a few subheaders, which are left aligned instead. I incorporated this text formatting into my model as well. Visual language refers to the line treatment, shape, quality, fills, outlines, photographs, textures, and the varying level of realism and detail. Most notable in my model is the use of colors that emulate the bike wheels and icons in the original model. The bike wheels have a thin outline, whereas the icon displays has slightly thicker outlines and white fills. Thinly outlined illustrations and thicker circle outlines can be seen in the icons in my relationship, time, location, and appearance displays. These icons also include only partially color-filled illustrations, like the original model. My logo display uses circular icons, but incorporates a black and white fill. This is meant to mimic the feather icon in the original display, which uses inverted colors. Additionally, my numbers display uses circular black nodes with white fills, which also emulate the circular pattern as shown in the original infographic. The bike includes some shading inside of the wheels, which I showed in the coffee cup in my time display, and in the clock in my coffee for thought diagram. Like the original model, my model does not have any divider lines between displays, and so I did not use any lines to separate my displays either. Instead, I relied on white space, as the original graphic does. The graphics used throughout my model tend to be simple, much like the icons shown in the original model. The bike in the original model is the most detailed part of the infographic, and I emulate this aspect by including a realistic cup in my time display, and a highly detailed Starbucks store in my numbers display. I also layered icons on top of illustrations like the original model, as shown in my location display. The original model also shows a main focal point, the bike frame. I emulated this attribute in the coffee cup in my relationship display, the black straw in my time display, and the Starbucks storefront in my numbers display. All of these elements are large and centered like the bike frame in the original model. One way I deviated from the model was in my relationship display. Unlike the original model, I laid out my icons in an organized rather than sporadic pattern. I also connected them with curved arrows. The original display does not include any arrows to guide the viewer from icon to icon. However, it is important to note that the original model shows a relationship of how each bike part is used in the bike, whereas my model shows a step-by-step process of how coffee is made. Therefore, in order to avoid confusion and to give my reader an order of steps to follow, I chose not to include a scattered layout. Visual hierarchy refers to varying size, position, or color to convey the order of visual importance of displays. In my infographic, the reader is instantly drawn to the title, Starbucks Coffee, because of its location at the top left-hand corner of the page, large text in blue color. The reader then sees the header, the coffee market, and the subtitle, the world's largest coffee chain, as both elements are located above and beneath the title respectively. Afterwards, the reader reads the Starbucks logo evolution section because it is the next closest element to the title. The viewer then sees the number display directly below. After going through the numbers display, the reader is drawn to the large gold coffee cup in the relationship display. The reader would continue on to read the first in Starbucks history, timeline graphic, since it is the largest display in the graphic, and it is the only display with the large black element. The reader would then read the Starbucks locations map, the Frappuccino sales graphic, and the average location graphic in that order. The viewer will afterwards read the Coffee for Thought section and finally the coffee price comparison graphic. The reader will be able to determine this order because of the size of the infographics, as well as the left-aligned labels of the Starbucks location and Coffee for Thought sections. The reader will end with the citation section, which is centered, aligned, and spans across the bottom of the page in small font since it is of the least importance in the graphic. Taking a closer look at the visual hierarchy of individual displays, the viewer first sees the gold and bolded subheader, located in most cases above the diagram. The only exceptions to this pattern are the price comparison and Frappuccino graphics, which include subheaders or annotations below the illustrations. The reader then sees the black annotation below the subheader. In the case of my relationship graphic, the coffee cup ranks next highest in visual hierarchy, and in the case of my numbers graphic, the Starbucks store ranks next highest because of their large size and bold gold colors. The annotation is located below each icon, and the precision labels next to each node rank lowest on the visual hierarchy because of their small text size. Unity is the repeated use of color, size, texture, or pattern of different elements that brings the graphic together. All of my displays, except for the average number of Starbucks locations display, includes full or partial circles. Each display also includes at least one element that uses a highlighting color such as blue or gold. Additionally, the circle icons used within each display are the same size, excluding my map and Coffee for Thought displays. In my relationships display, each icon contains a half fill and an illustration, as well as an annotation below each icon, showing a consistent pattern. Variety is the opposite of unity, in which color, size, texture, or patterns are varied to increase visual interest and engagement. All of my models look distinctly different from each other, as they use different illustrations. Additionally, in my time display, sometimes the text is located inside the icon and the illustration outside the icon, and vice versa. This pattern is seen in the icons in the original model as well. Additionally, some of the gold subheaders are center-aligned, while others are left-aligned. My infographic contains a title section, 4 rectangular boxes on the left, and 5 rectangular boxes on the right, as well as a citation section at the bottom of the graphic. These boxes vary in size and height, with the right top display and middle left displays as the two largest boxes. This matches the format of the original model. Like the original layout model, my infographic is not intended to be read strictly from top down or right to left. Instead, it follows a zigzag pattern, as aforementioned in my visual hierarchy section. Following the zigzag pattern, I chose to alternate models that contain circular icons on the outside of the displays with models that contain circular icons inside of the displays to avoid confusion and to further distinguish between the displays. One difference between the models is that my relationship diagram does not extend as far down as the original diagram of Tom Brady. This is due to the circular shape of my relationship diagram, as opposed to a more stretched out or oblong diagram, as seen in the NFL graphic. Another difference was that the border of my map and the caption for the number of Starbucks locations within a 1-mile radius extended beyond the original margins. During critiques, my critics strongly advised me to enlarge the map for better legibility. Both the original infographic and my infographic have the same amount of white space. However, due to the size of the map and the inclusion of New England, I had to extend beyond the margin of the original infographic. I tried shifting the map leftwards, but the space between the timeline and the map was too small to distinguish between the two displays. To further distinguish the two displays from each other, I decided to left-align the section header of the map. Lastly, my visual language model did not include divider lines or large blocks of text, unlike my layout model. My layout model was also more contained and organized than my visual language model, which contained sporadic elements arranged in a somewhat arced or circular pattern. This forced me to play around with the white space and the subheaders, some of which I chose to left-align to create an imaginary divider line. I also increased the size of the subheaders and made them gold in order to further distinguish the sections from each other. Another way to show the beginning and ending of the sections was by aligning the subheaders with each other. Alignment is lining up graphics and text to create a sense of order. As I mentioned before, I lined up the subheaders of my logo and relationship displays, and also my time and location displays. I also aligned up the bottom of my coffee for thought and coffee price comparison displays to show the ending of the section. However, I deviated from the layout model because the left and right boundaries of my infographic do not perfectly align. This is to better emulate my visual language model, in which some of their icons extend further to one side than other elements.